Hi there, it's Tristan here at TPF Recruitment. I hope you're well. I've put a short video together and some short notes today, ultimately just to ensure that you're as prepared as possible prior to your interview, and ultimately just ensuring that you've covered every single base so that you can be as confident as possible going into the interview. So the first point that I wanted to know is that preparation is absolutely key. So every single business, every person, every organisation, every culture, there are so many factors that are always so different in so many organisations that by doing as much preparation as research as you possibly can will ensure that your approach and your questions and your general kind of interview is tailored towards that particular business. So my main advice would be to do as much preparation as you possibly can, whether you've had 1, 2 or 1 million interviews in the past. Just prepare as best as you possibly can. So the main point typically, and the bit that a lot of organisations will look for, will be the research that you've done. And I can only advise you to just research. Learn everything you possibly can about the business, the size, the brand, their geographical footprint, their clients, their results, their people, their culture, their ethos. There is so much that you can possibly research, and clearly you're not going to remember everything, but the more research that you can do, typically the more information that you'll retain for the interview. Speak to friends, family, colleagues, ex-colleagues, potential employers of the business. Anywhere where you may have a mutual tie, somewhere that you might be able to get some feedback, the pros, the cons around the organisation, anything that you can do prior to that meeting that will give you some helpful insight prior to the meeting will definitely benefit you. And if for any reason you haven't got a mutual tie, then I guess the second best option would be to have a look online. So there's lots and lots of businesses out there now that do online reviews. So companies such as FIFO, Trustpilot, Glassdoor is another huge website. But all of these organisations, they would typically give you loads of insight from the employees directly as to what it is to work for those businesses. The only caveat that I would say, and this is just based on personal experience, is that sometimes the reviews on these websites can be biased towards negative comments, because you tend to find that people will only normally leave a review if they've had a negative experience, but they're normally less inclined to leave a positive review if they've had a positive experience. Now, that is a complete generalisation and is certainly not true for all organisations, but certainly from the experience I've had when I've looked at organisations on companies such as Glassdoor, they've typically been focused more so on the negative comments. So just maybe take them with a pinch of salt. And the third point in terms of your research would be on topical discussion points. So that the employers or the interviewers may want to gauge your thoughts on a particular subject, a topic, a news article. So just make sure that you've done your research on current affairs, the business, competitors, news articles, regulations, accounting rules, software, making tax digital, GDPR, all of these things that are hugely topical at the moment. Just make sure that you've done as much research as you possibly can. You haven't by any means got to be an expert in all of them, but by just having a rough idea will really set you apart, particularly if you're going into a position which is dominant in a particular software, or you know that the organisation utilises a software that you don't have experience of. By doing the research on that particular software will put you in good stead for the interview, so that you can show that you've been proactive in doing your research. The next point that I wanted to look at was questions. People always ask me, should I ask questions, should I not? And my answer to that is absolutely. So prepare yourself with as many questions as you possibly can. The typical format of an interview is that throughout the process of the interview, some of the questions that you've prepared will get answered. And normally right towards the end of an interview, the interviewer will say, have you got any questions for us? Is there anything else that you would like to know about us as a business, an organisation, the role, etc.? So the more questions that you can prepare yourself with will ultimately ensure that you're armoured with a few questions at the end, which typically leads to show that you're interested in the opportunity and engaged in the general process. If you can, try and think of some questions outside of the box, because that will ultimately just set you apart from other candidates who may ask some more generic questions around the job, the salary, the start date, for example. So a couple of ideas here. Ask around the business, the culture, the ethos, the training on the opportunity, the software that the organisation uses, how you performed in the interview and how you compare to other candidates that they've interviewed, the company vision, the progression prospects. I mean, there's loads and loads. And if you get stuck ultimately, just give me a call. But I think by brainstorming, you should be able to come up with some really good questions. But as I say, just give me a call if you need any direction on this whatsoever. Dress-wise and attire, I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I come from an ex-military background, so I kind of live by the personal motto that you can never overdress, but you can certainly underdress. So I would always say that kind of a smart casual attire would probably be the best approach, unless the employer says otherwise, or unless I obviously have told you otherwise. But again, any questions on that, please just give me a call and I can direct you accordingly. Location, again, this is only going to be topical for and useful for a face-to-face interview, but it may be useful later down the line for a telephone or a video interview as well. So just do your research on the location. The office, has it got parking? Is it close to high street amenities, places to get lunch? A social location, if that's more important to you. Can you get there by car? Can you get there by train? Have you got a backup option, a contingency route? Can you car share? Can you share the journey with a family, a relative, an employee? Do you know what I mean? There's so many different factors, but it's really, really important, particularly if the employers looked at your CV and thought, not really sure about the location of this candidate. If you've done that prior research, you can go in and then give them the confidence that the geographic location works for you. And the final point that I would say is just to practice. Do as many practice interviews as you possibly can with family, friends, colleagues. Try different formats. Just run through as many questions, answers, styles as you possibly can. The more practice you do, as I've had to do with this video, ultimately the better you will perform. So practice, 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 and you'll never be 100%, but what I can guarantee is that the more practice you do, the more confident you will be going into the interview. So hopefully that summarises the kind of key 5 or 6 points as to preparing for an interview. I've put another video together which talks more so around the actual interview itself, so looking at the format, the structure, your body language, and what you can do to really enhance your chances. But I thought for now, this would just give you some helpful insight, hopefully not teach you to suck eggs, and at worst, give you the confidence that you've done everything you possibly can. Any questions whatsoever, then please do not hesitate to get in touch, and I'll do everything I can to help you. Best of luck with your interview.